Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Come with me as we step into the deep, dark forest of fear, and let us pray that we see sunrise in the morning. Tonight's show is another series written by myself. You may remember back about 3, possibly 4 months ago, brought out a 7-part series entitled The Whinlatter Forest Secrets. Some fantastic feedback from that, and thank you once again. A lot of different ideas for spin-offs were suggested to me, and my wife in particular wanted me to make a spin-off involving Jimmy, who was the best friend of Dan and Faye, the couple. Without further ado, guys and girls, please do like, share and comment, and don't forget to hashtag Team Fear. And let's get straight into tonight's story, entitled The Mad Englishman, Jimmy's Purpose. Let's get straight into that. Five years after the Whinlatter Forest incidents, I never really found my calling in life, or had any true direction. Hell, Dan was always the one to make the decisions for me. But the army straightened me out before chewing me up and spitting me back out more twisted than I went in. But then Dan and Faye moved to that beautiful cabin in Whinlatter Forest. Man, it was perfect for them, all except one ancient arsehole, Dogmen. But I'm guessing most of you know by now what happened there. And if you haven't already, read the newspapers, or seen the news channels covering the string of gruesome murders across the entire valley, well, a lot happened, but even more has changed since. You see, after that went down with those dogmen, I had a lot to think about. One, I hadn't had as much fun and terror as when I was deployed. Two, I was good at eliminating them. Eventually, after weeks of drinking myself to sleep every night with a reflection across my laptop facing outwards towards the forest, I grew angry that I had been reduced to a wreck of a man. My paranoia was through the roof, and Dan could sense it. He suggested I move in with them so I wouldn't be on my own as much, but I knew that would cause more problems than good in the end. I had been obsessively researching dogman sightings and reports all across Europe and the Americas, and soon I was in contact with field researchers in Kentucky, Michigan and California, to name a few. I had some guys back in London who were long overdue paying, well, let's say what was due. So I kitted up and paid a couple of guys a visit. Don't worry, I was perfectly calm and fair. Well, let's just say they got what they deserved and I got my money back. I now had a plan at work in my mind and nobody was going to tell me otherwise. Nobody, that is, except Dan, of course. Honestly, it's like having a wife sometimes. I informed Dan and Faye that I was going to America to track and kill nuisance dogmen and any other cryptid creature that is causing terror and death to people, chasing up missing persons reports and alleged rogue bear attacks. And of course Dan was totally against the idea, stating that I was way out of my league and how could I, blah blah blah. But in the end, he could see my reasons and the fact that I was good at getting the job done. Whether it was in East London or Afghanistan, I always got my guy, or dogman as the case was here. As a parting gift, Dan and Faye gave me £10,000 cash, and Faye even sewed me a set of combat trousers and a jacket. I stayed one last night as we all sat and reminisced times when we were younger. Simpler times when the world around us still held its vow over its menacing secrets. I flew straight out the next morning to Detroit Wayne County Airport and made my way to Michigan. What better way to start looking for them than Dogman Central? Plus, I had a tip-off from a connection of a couple of missing groups of campers only a week prior to my arrival. Also, a couple of farms had been attacked, leaving numbers of livestock slaughtered, but not consumed. It certainly felt and appeared to be dogman activity, but I wouldn't know until I was on site and spoken with some of the witnesses. On arrival, I was met with what looked like the ruins of a farmhouse. The stables completely collapsed and everything just torn to pieces. Holy shit, I said to myself as I pulled up in the F-150, dust and dirt whipped up in the air, giving everything a haze, and the wind itself seemed to whisper to me. I approached a step up to the front door but was met before I could reach the first step by the old boy, shotgun in hand, pointed straight in my face. "You take one more step, son, and I'll be blowing you a new arsehole." "Oh, no problem, sir, no problem," I responded. "I'm here about your, wildlife problem, if you get me, sir." His eyes glared at me, slightly widened by my response. "And what would you be knowing about them, Limey?" "Well," I began, "I know I just exterminated a whole damn pack of rogue dogmen in the UK. Even a Squatch helped out," I declared proudly, expecting him to be shocked or at least interested. But he simply chuckled to himself and shook his head, removed the sweat-stained sun hat. He wiped the sweat beading from his brow. "You know you ain't the first to come here and try to impress me with stories of blood and war. I'm sure you won't be the last. There is nothing you or anyone can do here. Now go on, get out of this area before the sun goes down. I'll not have another young man's blood on my conscience." "But sir," I interjected, but he cut me short again. "Boy, if I have to shoot you in the ass, I will." He cocked his shotgun. I raised my hands up and said, "All right, okay, I'll leave. But you better believe I'm not finished here. This problem needs to be dealt with before more innocent kids get killed. I'll be seeing you around, mister." I left frustrated, deciding to check out the Manistee National Park. Reports of hikers and campers going missing. First, I had to meet with my contact and get equipped with everything that I would need, from guns to ammo, night vision headgear, etc. The full kit. I had to say, God, I love America already. 2 separate reports involving small parties of people hiking and camping around 3 miles back into the park forest. Stranger still, they were each suspected to have been within a mile or so of each other, although I'm waiting on confirmation. Furthermore, both parties' clothing, apparatus and supplies like food or water were left in camp. The only difference between the two groups was that Group 1 left no weapons if they had any in the first place. Group 2, however, appeared to have left everything, including some very high-powered hunting rifles, a Russian AK-47 and grenades. Yeah, my eyebrow raised as well. Hiking my arse. Whoever they weren't there to go hiking and enjoy the waterfalls and creeks. I had an opportunity to speak with one of the rangers, but, to be honest, I knew everything he was going to tell me, and more. Everything he wasn't. So I passed up that meeting, especially when he was going to want to know exactly why I was here, or why I was looking into the park's missing persons. I'm sure I would soon find myself shadowed by an agent or ranger sent to keep an eye on me. No, this was a much better approach, albeit a little bit loony, going deep into an area where 2 attacks have already taken place. I knew that the search team were posting up from the south, moving slowly up through the centre before heading back on a double check. This would be replicated by another team of 12 rangers and personnel. I had to admit, if they didn't find me, that was good as gold. But they were more likely to find me at some point or another. No problem really. I'll just play the hapless British tourist. Oh, hello. Cheerio. Ha ha ha. Anyway, I had a short window with the weather, and it was set to be fairly clear, but there was due a big storm to be blowing in from the west. I left the highway and onto the old logging trail until I was around a mile or so back. I was surprised by the similarity to Whinlatter Forest in the UK. The trees and brush were heavy and thick, although we didn't have any Spanish moss hanging like spiderwebs from every branch. The denseness was mimicked perfectly as the shadows that were cast taunted my paranoia. I couldn't see much further than a few feet into the tree line either side of the logging road. I soon found a small clearing a ways off the road into the tree line and drove my truck further into the thick brush. Hopping out the truck, I began cutting small branches and covering the truck. I wouldn't need it where I was going, and I planned to return within 72 hours at most. With final checks, I stepped to the wall of foliage and twigs and began making my way through the brush. Finally finding a game trail, I made my way towards Group 1's last known location. The forest was alive with bugs and fauna, and this left me with a resounding confidence as I trekked deeper and deeper into the valley. According to my map, I was a couple of hours hike up and down some pretty serious terrain until I was in the right area. I was hoping that, as I got closer to the site, I would find some evidence that they had made their way through the forest, abandoning their camp. Maybe a couple of boot prints, and I could put a gauge on the direction they had fled. Camp 1 was a group of varsity students on a week's stay and hike. 3 boys and 4 girls, all into bioengineering, grade A students. 2 of the guys were successful jocks playing state football. Certainly not the type that were used to camping in the wild. Certainly not this far back. As I mentioned before, it appears they were unarmed. Well, as far as firearms, that is. Group 2's location would take at least a full day of hiking, given how dense the forest was. Anyway, I carried on my trek, soon reaching a small creek, and decided that it would be a good idea to follow the creek down further into the valley. If the students had found this, then I believed that they would have followed it, in hope of maybe finding someone fishing or camping further down. I followed the winding flow of water for about 30 minutes, when up ahead I could see a couple of jumpers, white-tailed deer it is for those who don't hunt. They were beautiful, as they lowered their long necks to get a drink from the cool, fresh water. In a moment of pure insanity, 2 deer very suddenly became one, as an enormous black figure, almost a blur, it moved so fast. A black figure rushed the deer from the left rear side, and picked it up, and was gone. 10 seconds later, the sounds of panicked deer were very suddenly expired, and the forest fell silent all around. The last remaining deer still stood breathing, heavy, eyes wide with panic. It scanned the surrounding area until it laid its dark hazel eyes upon me. I could smell the fear coming from this animal. It knew it as much as I. Seconds later, the sounds of brush and branches snapping came thundering closer and closer, and then flash! Again, the huge black figure burst from the trees and grabbed up the deer, carrying it over the creek to a large boulder on the other side, where it stopped. I don't think it had caught my scent as I was upwind of it. As it finally stopped upon the enormous boulder, I could finally see what we were dealing with. As suspected, it was a huge black dogman. Its long talon-like claws digging into the deer's head as it bent down close, smelling the panic-stricken deer. Sweat pouring and steaming off its hide. Seconds later, the dogman put the deer out of its misery with a disturbing crunch of its enormous jaws as they clamped around each side of the deer's skull. The beast let out a long howl or screech. It was a prime specimen, as it stood 7 or 8 feet tall, with a huge barreled chest, with a patch of silver fur running over its shoulders and then down its chest to its midsection. Its striking and powerful yellow eyes glimmered and glowed even in the late afternoon sunlight. I trained my rifle on its head, aiming for the throat. I let out a sigh and steadied myself as the crosshairs moved ever so slightly with my breathing. Wait. Now!
Bang!
I fired the rifle with a heavy kick to my shoulder and watched as the bullet passed straight through the dogman's throat and windpipe. It let out a most god-awful noise, almost a gurgle, and sent another ballistic round straight between its eyes and dropped him in doing so. His large, over-heavy body crashing with a slump to the boulder. Crimson blood running down the dark black and grey boulder it had just stood upon. One down, I said to myself. The loud crack of gunshots spooked the remaining birds out of the area until silence descended all around once more. Anyway, I snatched a large canine tooth from the dead beast, hoping to get some DNA results from a contact with a laboratory. A reflex in his leg muscle almost caused me to scream as it kicked out wildly. Jesus! Phew! Oh, God! I laughed to myself. Trudging onwards, I got back to the trail, which again soon disappeared, and I had to create my own. Not stealthiest approach, I know. Anyway, onwards and upwards. A short trek later, and to be honest, not much ground was covered, but as I cleared out a large branch and section of brush, I could smell that something was off. Also, there was a hum in the air. Flies? I questioned aloud. A backpack lay mysteriously discarded, but as I approached, the smell got much worse. And as I turned the backpack over, to my shock, the left strap still had a part of a shoulder and an entire arm attached, or rather tangled in it. Maggots already wriggling their way out of the offensive sight. Snap! The stick broke the silence of my sickness at the sight before me. Scanning my surroundings, it was impossible to grasp where the noise came from. This entire forest was an ambush waiting to happen. This dense, thick foliage surrounded me at all angles. Snap crunch! I spun around on a dime as the giant jet black creature leaped through the brush to my left. There was zero time for me to react as we both crashed back. I reached and drew my knife, making a last hope attempt to survive this attack. Instinctively, it seemed I plunged the sharp cold steel into my attacker's neck. There was a noisy gurgle and a choking as we crashed to the forest floor. However, this I soon realised was no dogman, as the weight was considerably lighter. I looked at the attacker and see, it was some crazy ass guy. All painted up, his face an array of colours with white and red patterns. His eyes, however, chilled my very soul. They were glowing a bright yellow. As he was choking, he reached for my face or throat with his sick, long yellow nails that really might as well have been talons. I punched him in the face twice until he went limp. Exhausted and gasping for air, I threw him off me and lay staring at the canopy above me. I wasted no more time. Totally exhausted and feeling more than I should be. With the heel of my boots, I turned the creature onto its back to face me. I didn't have long before its eyes started to open. "All right, sunshine," I said, before unloading my Glock 45 into its head, sending it back to the pits of the underworld for eternity. I wiped my face clean of its blood and brain matter, gathered my bearings and moved on. Taking one last moment to check out the putrid remains and the backpack. As far as the remains giving any ID, they were slim, but disgustingly, I searched through the pockets and bingo, a wallet and ID card. Damn kid, you really didn't deserve anything like this. He was 21, Caucasian male by the name of James, redacted. From the States, and there was a picture of his family, I assume. Well, that's one, I again said to myself. God, I hope this is the only one I find like this. Again, I still felt unusually drained and got back on track to finding the rest of the group. It was now getting dark, and the bright moon still desperately trying to get through the above canopy, especially within this thick, impenetrable forest that now seems to smother my very breath. Silence so dark and heavy, my breathing seems to echo slightly. Hollow trunks of long dead trees are lining the path, and I think almost as if they themselves are following me. "Oh, come on, Jimmy, get yourself together, son," I declared, trying to gain my usual impenetrable London confidence. But what it really did was make me doubt myself further. 30 minutes later, and I was making my way down a steep, grassy slope onto an enormous boulder and down into a deeper hollow. Eventually, the trees started to finally thin out, and the land became a wetland or marsh. The thick forest trees giving way to long reeds and tiger grass. The smell that clung to the air around me was stagnant and reeked of rot. Ah, crikey, yuck! I choked, reaching for my bandana and tying it over my mouth and nose. The terrible terrain made time slow and my progress even slower. But I trekked on through, cutting my way through the obscuring tall grass. For a second, I thought I heard something, so I stopped. Nothing. I carried on a minute or so later, albeit a little bit more cautious. Boom, boom, boom! Snare! Crack! Okay, that was definitely something. I said aloud, turning on a dime, left, and then right. Silence still, the only company to witness what was unfolding around me. Boom, boom, boom! Snare! It came again. This time, I caught the dark figure rushing close by in the tall grass from my right. Scariest thing was, I could see its chest and shoulders high above the grass. "Yeah! Come on, you son of a bitch!" I screamed. I had no idea what it was other than big and fast, but I stood my ground anyway, firearm raised and ready. A long howl came from what must have been at least 200 yards. "Alright, I'll come to you then." Cracking a red flare, I began following its trail through the tall grass. A low-hanging fog was rolling on top of the water that lay stagnant, green and thick. Praying I just didn't step on a poisonous snake. Moments went by as I made my way along the trail. Its prints were canine. Well, I think, as they were very long at the heel. Almost human, but not, given the damn long claws that were attached to the other end. There was only two, so it had to be bipedal, and judging by the strides, I would hazard a guess of at least 8 or 9 feet. Soon, I heard the sploshing and booming of its footfall smashing its way through the land. Then, I could see the large, red glowing eyes coming from further ahead, in and out of my view. I tried to get a bead on it, but it was so fast. However, soon, it showed itself up ahead, about 30 feet. It was huge. No, it was a giant wolf, except on 2 damn feet, easily standing 7 or 8 feet tall, his body ridiculous in size and mass. Evil black hair covered his entire body, and a mighty mane around his shoulders. I immediately aimed my rifle and fired 2 successive bursts at his apparent chest. I swear to you, I see the bullet hit the target and the blood. But nothing No effect. Nada.
Ha 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 ha! Stupid human. Now you will die.
It said to me, shaking his gigantic head at me. What the actual fuck? I remarked, and it was cut short as he began charging towards me. The look in its face was one of pure malice and destruction. As he got closer, I could now see he was wearing torn rags of clothing, once possibly jeans. Ah! I screamed and fired without hesitation. Oh shit! It's a damn werewolf! I screamed again as his gigantic frame made light work of the land around him. I turned and dashed into the thick brush and grass beside me, hoping to gain some advantage with my size. He immediately roared in fury, and I could feel and hear him thrashing his way through the grass right next to me. I reloaded my rifle and pulled the pins on 2 grenades, throwing them to his left and right position, and diving into a nearby pond before boom! I could just about feel the vibration of his roar and the explosives detonating and the searing heat flash over my back. After a second or two, I arose from the stagnant green water and trained my gun until the smoke started to clear. I could hear him roaring and hissing in agony. The smoke finally clearing, and there he was, laying maybe 10 feet from me, growling and clawing at the mud and grass. Oh dear, you don't look too good, matey. Ha ha ha! I laughed.
I'll kill you, you human. Ah!
He winced and growled. Yeah, sure you will. Just not this time, eh, sunshine? I replied, pulling myself back onto the bank of land and standing before him.
Please.
He coughed and groaned, pleading for his life. His enormous, powerful legs both laying a further 15 feet away from him, and his right arm was barely hanging on. Also, a large crater in his right side, exposing his black and cursed organs, twitching and shuddering as he clung to his damned existence. Lighting a cigarette, I asked, "You know what?"
What?
He asked, coughing and drowning in his own blood. "I like you." "Yeah, you ain't bad, mate. I mean, you can talk, can't you?" I barked wickedly.
And what about it?
He replied painfully. "Well, son, that's the thing. I bet you know where those kids that were camping are, Again I insisted, obnoxiously. He choked and coughed again, a hearty laugh, spitting blood as he did so. Now, I don't see what is so funny, especially when you're like that, and also when I can do this." I screamed at him, then raising my machete high above before bringing it down upon his remaining good arm.
Ah!
He roared out, "Now, I'll ask again, and this time you're going to be a good boy and tell me something interesting. Alright?" I again screamed at him.
Okay.
He finally said, almost weeping through blood-red eyes.
Okay. They're in the underground facility. Further back the way you were heading. It's connected by the sewers.
What? I demanded.
I ate 4 of them. I can't stop it. It's not me. It's the beast.
He croaked and spat. "Were they all young?" I added.
No. 2 were middle-aged guys.
He replied painfully. "Okay, good stuff. You see, I told you I like you," I remarked, with a huge grin upon my face.
So you're gonna help me? Help me?
He asked. Listen, it's not you. It's me." I laughed out loudly.
But you...
"Shh! Shut up, will ya?" I replied before pulling the pin on another grenade and shoving it in his huge jaws. "Good night, mate. Good seeing ya." Again, I laughed before turning and running back to the trail. Seconds later, his roars of protest were silenced with an almighty
boom.
If the Rangers didn't hear all of this, then I'm Magic Freaking Johnson, I thought as the earth, grass and bits of flesh rained down from behind me. I gathered myself a moment later to have a drink and some energy bars. I took a look at the map and searched for the nearest sewer system. In the area, within a 5-mile radius. There, I said to myself. Approximately 6 miles north of my location was a sewer run-out to a large lake. Closer still, maybe a mile to my west, on a small hill, was a sewer access point at an old power station for the maintenance of the lake's tourist amenities power supply. 1.5, maybe 2 miles northwest of where I was, a small system of caves and tunnels aptly named Wolf Crown Pits. I was less than happy to see that, but onwards and upwards, people. Onwards and upwards. I wanted to try and see what or who was working at the power station and hopefully gain access to the sewer. Soon the terrain began to incline and I made my way up and out of the foggy hollow and into the forest once more. It was now approaching 3:45 a.m. and the morning sunlight was soon breaching the canopy with glimpses of the sky above and a strange twilight glimmering through the trees and shadows twisted and caused me to jump a few times. There was still hardly any wildlife to be heard or seen. I had, however, noticed I was no longer feeling the draining or dazed feeling as I had hours before when I encountered that creature or skinwalker, in my opinion. Or maybe it was the werewolf stalking me. I don't know. Anyway, whatever hold he or it had placed over me, it had seemed to have passed. Thank goodness for grenades. This side of the hollow was a great deal easier to traverse and the light was getting better, but that ever-present feeling of dread still buried firmly in my chest was worming its way down to my stomach. Eventually, I made my way to the base of a small elevation to which the power station sat, humming and buzzing loudly, even from the few hundred metres away that I was. I was just about to step up onto a large rock to gain a footing onto a smaller cluster of rocks when I stumbled and fell to my left. My landing was not severe, but it was peculiar. As I collided with the ground, it made a hollow sound. Oh, for fuck's sake! Cleaning myself off and getting up, I inspected further between the rocks and grass, and there, a small handle nestled in some long grass and weeds. A secret hatch? I questioned aloud. Cocking my weapon, I slowly and quietly as possible opened the hatch. Dirt and dust fell in slowly, clearing a way to reveal a long staircase down, seemingly into a pitch black abyss. Ah, just bloody marvellous, I whispered. Slowly and carefully, I entered the staircase, closing the hatch behind me and plunging myself into total darkness. I lit another red flare, the glowing, buzzing, strange, eerie shadows all over the sub-basement walls. As I reached the bottom of my descent, in front of me I could make out a long corridor that never revealed its secrets, nor its end. On each side of the main corridor were separate rooms and further corridors. Turning to my right, I noticed a large plaque with a map of the complex. If I'm correct in memory, it had over 25 sub-floor basements, some named Project Zoo, other ones simply random numbers such as 007-55443-B, whilst others were more direct in their meanings such as Human Testing Range or DNA Splicing and Research. Some left a cold shiver up my spine. Bone Reconstruction, Observatory and Transitional Ward. What the fuck is going on down here then? I questioned as I took a picture with my cell phone and carried on down the central vein towards the testing and advanced theatre. As I walked further into this dark and quiet facility, the smell of bleach and death fought with my senses for appraisal. Lights flickered from broken fittings on the ceiling. As some did so, I could make out short glimpses of operating areas and cages, some with monkeys and others with humans, others with snakes and humans, all clearly sedated and strapped to gurneys. Some conscious enough to observe me passing by, my eyes wired with shock, and their eyes seemingly dead and full of hunger or anger. I lit another flare and continued, and it soon became apparent that the further I was going into this place, the crazier this place was getting. I passed an open plan area which housed 3 silverback gorillas. Inside with them was a tall and extremely muscular, man-like being sat atop a large boulder, staring at the 3 gorillas. Then he noticed me and his face contracted to pure rage. He screamed at me and his lower jaw unhinged to a horrible degree. It looked almost cartoonish. Unfortunately, it wasn't now, was it? As if on command, the 3 gorillas turned to face me and rushed the glass, separating us all. Bang! 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 As they hit the glass, it echoed through my bones and down the long dark corridors. I looked at the man and flipped him off, blowing a kiss to the gorillas. He was enraged and soon was hitting the glass like a madman. His blood soon flowed all over the glass as he did so. Turning, I carried on my path. I soon found many bodies of apparent staff that were torn to shreds, ripped to absolute indescribable violent proportions. I found a door about 5 minutes later down the long, musky corridor, and it had a sign that read, "Warning, authorised personnel only, level A1 access only." Well, when they make it sound so damn intriguing, I just have to see what is behind door number 3, or rather in this case door number A1. I thought to myself. On entering the room, I could hear a series of quiet, melodic beats and air hissing. I turned to see what was awaiting me, and was shocked to see what I could later find out to be 2 of the girls and 1 of the boys from the missing group. But on closer inspection, it was clear that they were a long way from the cute, innocent kids that their parents loved and once knew. They each were in different stages of, well, transformation into God knows what. Werewolves? Their eyes now a mix of deep blood red and the last remnants of their natural human blue or green. Dark, hollow sunken sockets around those eyes accompanied by grotesque, huge brow ridges. Their mouths and nose seemed to contort and stretch into a sort of muzzle. It's much like a huge wolf, but much more unnatural and uglier. Drooling and breathing like thunder from their huge cavity of their chests. From the distance they eyed me, up, then down, before trying to get free from the leather straps, snarling and growling at me. I sighed. Kids, do any of you remember who you really are? Nothing, just that same terrible canine growling and snapping of their jaws. Saliva now flying around and dangling from their exaggerated maws. I'm so sorry, kids, but I have to do this. Go to God, he's waiting for you. I said aloud, and with that, I began hacking each one's wolf-like heads off, one by one. It was the only way to be sure, yet still, it haunts my dreams to this very day. Grabbing a smoke from my packets with a bloodied and shaking hand, I lit a cigarette and took a long drag. Leaving the room and closing the door behind me, I heard a noise echoing from down a ways. I couldn't be sure, but it sounded like footfall. Very suddenly, and without any other warning, a massive, black as night werewolf with enormous long black claws stomped down the corridor towards me, soon joined by another one coming from the joining corridor to my left. Shit! I hissed. It was either back the way I'd came, or through these arseholes. I, of course, chose the latter. Dropping and rolling to my right, I threw 2 smoke bombs, each towards the oncoming abominations. As the smoke filled the corridor, I ran towards the larger one of the 2 and swung my machete straight through his huge leg, dropping it instantly to one side. Without a second to spare, I span around and drove the blade straight through the back base of the skull, severing the spinal cord with a sickening crunch. By now the other approaching beast had spotted me, and as I finished the counterpart off with a few rounds point blank into the back of its skull, slump. It collapsed awkwardly to the cold white floor. "Come on then, let's have it!" I screamed at the foul-smelling killing machine approaching me. But this one seemed smarter, possibly after seeing me lay waste to his mate, or it was just more slick and tactical. The weight and the intrigue and stare-off was like a cold wave of energy passing back and forth between us. Both with ill intentions, both extremely dangerous and ready to die if need be. I noticed that he had a US Navy tattoo on his right bicep and bore many scars across his entire torso, all visible through the long, wiry hair on his enormous body. He raised his arms either side and high into the air, as if trying to make himself look bigger or more intimidating. Cracking another red flare and tossing it to the ground in front of us, I said, "Ah, are you dancing, mate? Come on, you pussy. Let's see what you got, you overgrown flea bag," I declared like a wild Scotsman, facing almost certain death to the legions of English. It roared in response and jumped at me, and in seconds, and at the time was a blur, he was upon me, teeth snapping at my face, claws wildly flying around trying to find my soft flesh. I managed to jam my rifle between his jaws before he was upon me, but now I was pinned by his enormous weight of something that wanted nothing more than to eat my face as I lived through it. "Ah!" I screamed at it as we battled it out, I managed to grab my hunting knife in my boots and stabbed it straight into the eye, twisting as it crunched through his socket, blood and fluid draining out into my face and mouth, and soon I was losing my grip on the rifle, his stanky, rancid blood and breath choking me as it reeked of blood and death. "I'm not going out like this!" Again I screamed. The damn beast smiled, a crooked toothy grin at me, and then said,
"Ha ha 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 ha! Human, you are nothing compared to I. I am a god amongst bugs. Prepare to meet your end as I eat your juicy face and insides, and you watch until you..."
Crack! Bang! 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 Smash! It was cut short by the glass on the gorilla's pen cracking before finally shattering, and 3 large silverbacks suddenly pounding their fists on their chests and floor. Ah! They each roared as they came thundering closer. The werewolf was distracted. This is my only chance left, I thought. Reaching for my pistol, I unloaded it right into his face. It was just enough to throw him off me, and I rolled out from underneath him, apparently just in time as the gorilla set upon him, rearing up and smashing down with primal strength that seemed to shake the very concrete around the complex. But within seconds the werewolf was joined by another, and the two faced off side by side against the gorillas, and they each seemed to get in front of me and my position, as if protecting me from their attack, each one sizing the other up as tension started rising. "Checkmate," I said, looking at the evil nightmares before us. The werewolf who attacked me was losing blood fast, as his one good eye glared at me, saliva and blood drooling from his fang-ridden snout. The flare's red glow giving the whole setting a horror movie atmosphere. "It's now or never," I said to myself. The huge ape on the right grunted, almost as if in approval. Raising my automatic rifle, I sounded a cue for the next round. As the bullet left the muzzle with a flash, we all rushed forward as one. I fired short bursts between the hulking figures as they roared and smashed at each other, the werewolves tearing into the gorilla's hides, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Aiming was difficult, but I managed to fire upon the werewolf as it was thrown against the walls or floor, whilst the other was engaged in a battle of muscle and brute force against claws and fangs. With a sickening crunch, the wounded werewolf was first to fall. As he was repeatedly smashed face first against the cold, unforgiving floor, the gorilla screamed and roared with excitement. Then the other was forced to back up. As he did, all 3 gorillas backed him further and further back until it reached a security door that was locked. "Oh no, mate. Looks like that is the end of your walkies," I said tauntingly from behind a wall of sheer silverback muscle.
Your kind are always so foolish. Do you honestly think I'm the only one of my kind left? We are many all around the world, and soon the awakening will begin. Already Taylor, Mississippi is under siege from our master, the Old One. Soon every human and ape will be nothing more than bones.
He hissed and screamed. With nowhere to go, and the only option was to fight, and fight it did. A second later, it pounced on all fours and jumped up and off the wall, landing on the back of one of the gorillas, sinking his fangs deep into the throat and ripping it out. The other gorillas grabbed and pulled him off as they fought, and my ally fell to the floor in a quivering pool of blood. Pulling him out of his misery and suffering, I shot point blank into his temple, ending his pain instantly. The noise came from 2 remaining gorillas was intense as they went blindingly mad with fury, both grabbing hold of the werewolf's long arms and tearing them from their sockets. "Holy shit!" I said aloud, and then they jumped upon him and began biting and ripping him to pieces. The werewolf was overcome within seconds. All the while it glared at me with those haunting red eyes, as if to be his final wish to try and spook me. I grinned from ear to ear and winked. "Looks like you're done, mate. Hope hell is nice and hot. See you when I get there, bitch." I stepped back away from the carnage unfolding in front of me and lit a cigarette. Watching the hulking boys devour and desecrate the remaining torso of the werewolf, their grunts and growls deep and purposeful. Should I get the hell out of here whilst I can? I questioned. Eventually I decided that if they were going to kill me, then they would have joined the werewolves in doing so. And so I waited and waited and waited, and finally they finished playing with their food and turned with heavy thuds in the silence of the deep facility corridor. Their faces smeared with blood and slashed deeply with cuts, and their torsos much the same. Each one of the immense creatures approached me slowly, not taking their eyes off mine for a second. "Okay, boys, I owe you two a huge thank you," I declared quietly and calmly, then searching for an energy bar or 6. I threw them over to them. They happily sat back on their haunches and ate the bars. I decided I would attempt to carry on looking around for the 2 remaining kids. Sophie, redacted, 20 years old, and Jason, redacted, aged 22. As I walked away with one eye over my shoulder at my 2 companions eating the last remaining bits of energy bar, they followed me with a snort and then grunt. "Oh, okay, yeah, sure, come on guys, I could use your help," I said to them, each giving me a sort of grin and further grunt. This is by far the most messed up thing I've ever done. Wait till Faye and Dan hear about this. As we passed the gorilla's old containment area, it dawned on me. Where was that tall, creepy looking mofo? The one they were housed with? My questions were soon answered as I looked up to the large boulder he was sat upon. The dark black blood was running fresh from all over it. His torn apart carcass, or whatever was left of it, strewn across the back end of the enclosure. These gorillas were special. I didn't know how, but they seemed more powerful than regular wild silverbacks, and clever. We trekked back down the main corridor towards the final section of this floor that had my interest. The Advanced Transformation Observatory. Kicking open the double doors, I was greeted by a sight for strong stomachs only. Bits of humans and animals, rodents and reptiles alike, were all wired up to strange beeping machines, strange crossbred versions of them secured in individual tanks, vials of thick gloop and flask of unknown purple liquid in a large cabinet at the back of the room. As I approached the back end of the room, the boys both grunted and snorted at me furiously over something I was yet to discover. Next to the cabinet holding the strange purple liquid was an observation window made from 5-inch thick bulletproof glass. Inside was an arena of sorts. I don't know for sure, but it looked as if many fights to the death had been fought here within this secure compound. Many CCTV cameras were placed strategically around the arena, which begged the question, just who was watching whatever happened in here? I made my way through another set of double doors and was shocked to see the 2 remaining college kids strapped down to a table, or an operating table of sorts. Hey kids, wake up!" I yelled, hoping I wasn't too late. My heart sank as I noticed that the young man had an IV drip with an unknown purple fluid being fed into his system. The young lady, however, did not. So I untied her first and tried to awaken her. She was half conscious and drowsy. She kept murmuring on about wolves and red eyes. Shh, it's okay, sweetie, it's okay," I said calmly. The young man had apparently woke and was now staring straight at me. His eyes were glowing that same familiar red. "You alright, son? Do you know where you are?" I asked. He just stared blankly straight through me. But it wasn't the same intimidating stare that the werewolves had shown me. No, it was as if he was looking straight through me. "Boys, do you think you can carry him out with me? I'll grab the girl." The gorillas both turned and looked at each other, growled lightly at the young man who suddenly snapped out of his daze. I don't know if it was the deep growl that broke his spell, but he was suddenly very scared and crying to be released. "Okay, alright mate, alright, just calm down. Take it easy, easy," I asked him, his watery eyes looking back up at me and then at the 2 huge gorillas. "Oh yeah, don't mind them. They're with me, they're the rescue team. Saracen and Beast. Yeah, that'll do. We're going to get you guys out, okay? Now, young man, your eyes, they were red a second ago. Have you turned yet?" I questioned. What? No, sir, no. I promised they only brought me in here yesterday. If I'm right, then it would take another 24 hours of this purple junk being pumped into my system to fully change my DNA, and please, sir, don't leave me here," he screamed desperately, gripping onto my shirt lapels. I paused for thought, mulling the idea over in my head before saying, "Alright, let's do this. But be calm, yeah? It's not like you want Saracen or Beast to get jumpy now, is it?" From behind me, a deep booming chesty came from Saracen's chest. "Ready, boys?" I said, turning to the gorillas. "Let's go." I stepped up and out with the young lady over my back and back down the dark corridor towards the exit. It was going to be an arduous trek back with two barely mobile people. Well, one, but at least I'd got to them before they could be slaughtered or turned into one of those abominations. Saracen and Beast kept my six in check and a close eye on Jason as we trekked out of the darkness of the secret compound staircase and into the immense fresh and beautiful daylight above ground. Looking around, the forest still was eerily quiet, but all I had to do now was call it in and wait for the rendezvous instructions. A short while later, we were met by a response team in a chopper. I see the missing kids off to the chopper rescue team, and then headed off slyly back into the deep, dark bush. Waiting on me were my new two brothers, Saracen and Beast. "Oh, this just gets better and better. Shall we, boys?" I said, as we all faded deeper into the forest in search of more nightmares that need killing. Oh, and the other missing team. Well, boys, it looks like I really have found my purpose in life. Until next time, folks. Jimmy. Wow. Hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I have writing it. I've been probably penning that for about 2.5 months. And then was up at 2 a.m. this morning till 9:30 a.m. writing and finishing off this part 1 or chapter 1 of the Jimmy series that I want to run out. Basically, the idea I want to take this with, guys, is have Jimmy visit different locations. The next one is going to be in America again, but from there we will be going back towards the UK and then on to Europe. Do stay tuned for the next update. If you haven't subscribed to Dead Man Talking Forest of Fear, what are you waiting for? Get subscribed, smash that subscribe button and slap the notification bell to stay up to date with all Dead Man Talking content. Please, as ever, do like, comment and share, and don't forget to hashtag Team Fear. If you guys have a story, whether it's true or fictional, that you'd like me to narrate for you, please, of course, do get in touch anytime you feel like at the email below. That's DMTForestOfFear@gmail.com. And as ever, guys, huge thank you for your wonderful support, kind comments. I know it's been a bit of a bleak couple of weeks here on the channel, but I promise we're going nowhere. As ever, remember, keep your eyes and ears open, wits about you, and above all, be safe. Not sorry.